Okay, we're up to Yud Aleph Amid Beis. We're 5 lines from the bottom. Yesterday we saw a case where a person had a house in a mavoi. Picture, there's a mavoi on this side of this Gemara, a mavoi on this side of this Gemara. My head is this chutzner, and the opening was this way. And he decided that he wants to make an opening this way. So he said, if it's susum, he can't do it. But had it once upon a time been open and now closed, then he could. So in other words, like it was like, you ever see these buildings, you could see the windows, the doors are boarded off. You could see once upon a time there was an opening over there. So Amamar, since there was an opening there, and it's susum, meaning it was closed off, but the opening is there, then the bnei mavoi, the ones that he wants to open up into, the new mavoi that he wants to go into, cannot stop him. And now Rava qualifies that. Amar Rava, lo shanu ela shlei paratz es petzimav. That's provided he take down the doorpost and lintel. Aval paratz es petzimav. If he went ahead when he closed it off, he took away all the door paraphernalia. Right then, the Mavi could be makiv, because when he took it down, right, when he took it down, his goliath das, and his goliath das that he doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. If he just closed it off, but the door was still intact, then what? He wasn't megalias das. He didn't show that he wanted to go ahead and leave. On the other hand, now once he went ahead and went to the trouble of not only closing it off, but taking down the whole surah of the door, the mezuzos, the doors, and of course the top, then what? Then he's megala, he has nothing to do with it anymore, and therefore, so Rav is qualifying that we said that susam, they can't stop him from opening it up. That's provided the doorway is intact. Once the doorway is gone, then they could stop him. Amle Abaya l'Rava, Tanya the Messiah lach. I have a brisa that supports you. Yud Beis Amin Aleph, bias sasum, yesh lo dalet amitz. A bias that is sasum has 4 amis. 4 amis in front of the doorway. Parasetz p'tzimav, but once you go ahead and take away the doorpost and the lintel, ein lo dalet amis. You no longer have that. Skipping the parentheses, bias sasum ein metama kol svivav. If the halacha is, fellas, that if you have a house with a mace in it, the only way it's metama when you're in the house, and also through the doorway that the mace is going to come out from, then anything in that doorway will be tameh. So this house has a mace in it, and you have a doorway that's sasum. We won't view the house, Rashi says, as a kever. If the doorway is sasum, and in other words, there is no way out, then we'll view it as a kever, and any within 4 amis they'll be tameh. So by sasam ain't a metama called svivav. Parts is p'tzima, but once you take away the doorway, metama called svivav, it'll be metama called svivav. Says Rashi. Parts is p'tzima. Harihu kekever. It becomes like a kever. The chachamim and the chachamim midrabanon timu es svivoisav hakever dalet amis. With metama 4 amis around the circumference of the house, right? Dalet amis within dalet amis. Kadeshaloi yikarvu oisei tahiris ad kever. To make it that the people who deal with tyrus won't go anywhere near the kever. So it's a good safeguard. Be ilu and be oil on the kever, and then become tamei. Bloy ad the tire, and they won't realize it. So going ahead and saying that a house that has no doorway is considered a kever, they're going to stay away and thus avoid becoming tamei and not realizing it. So that's a bias raya to Rabba from the first, that bias sasam. If it's once you take away the p'tzimov, it's considered totally closed off when we give it the din of a kever. Amar Rabbi bar Rav Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, muvois hamufuloshois le'ir acheres. So you have a city, fellas, let's say coming from my this side, and they're going to the city over here, and they're accustomed to walking through alleyways. They're accustomed to walking up through these mavlis, and the people want to go ahead and close the mavli, thus in stopping these people from getting through. Okay, so Muvois that are open, Le'ir Acheres to another city, Ubikshu b'nei ha'ir l'saisman, and they want to go ahead and close off the alleyways. B'nei oisa ha'ir ma'akvin aleihem. The people from this city, coming from this city, who are using it as an entrance to the other city, can stop them. Now, l'chari, you'll ask, they don't own it. The people in the Mavi own it. Why can't they stop it? So we're going to see a din that a derech that has been machzik the rabbim to use the derech, then you don't have a right to close it off. Again, this is a private alleyway. Yet since it's been used by other people and it's been machzik to use by the rabbim, you can't close it off. Says Gemara, and you can't tell me that the only way into the other city is through these alleyways that they could be ma'akiv. Even if there are other ways to get into the city, not through these alleyways. Nonetheless, ma'akva, they could stop the people who own the alleyway. The mavoy mishum to Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, because of the din of Rabbi Yehuda Amarav. Dam Rabbi Yehuda Amarav meitzer a derech shechsiku by rabbim, that rabbim are machzik they use asal kalkula. You can't be makalkulate. So therefore, these alleyways, they can't, even if there are other ways to get into the city, they would not be able to go ahead and close it off because it's a derech that's been machzik by the rabbim of the other city. Amrav Anan Amar Shmuel, muvois hamufulashin, muvois l'rishus harabim, muvois that are open up into rishus harabim, ubikshu b'nei muvois lahamid lahem delasais, and they want to go ahead and put up doors. So picture again, you have the bias to the chatzar to the mavui. The mavui opens up to rishus harabim, and usually, guys, picture Erevin in your mind. So you have a lechi there by the mavui or a kaira by the mavui. They want to close off the mavui. They want to close it off, thus stopping the bnei rishus harabim from coming in. So says Rav Anan in the name of Shmuel, bnei rishus harabim ma'akvin aleihem. They could stop them, even though it's a private alleyway. Rishus harabim could stop them from what? From closing off, boarding off this area. Savamina, Hani Mili Bedalat Amis. They held, where can they stop them? Up till 4 Amis. In other words, within the first 4 Amis of the alleyway, that's where they can't put the door. But after 4 Amis, they could put the door. So in other words, they want to qualify Shmuel's din. This din of privatizing your mavoi by putting a door there, that means within 4 Amis. But within 4 Amis, beyond that, you could stop them from going in by putting up a door. Rav Nachman, Rav Zera, Rav Nachman, Dalan Amis asmuch l'rishus harabim, kisrishus harabim damyu. The 4 Amis that are samach to rishus harabim have a din of rishus harabim. So therefore, that's why they can't put up the door, because the first 4 Amis of that mavoi have a din of rishus harabim. But once you get past the 4 Amis mark, then it's private property. Then you should be able to put up a door. The loihi, it's not true. This din of Dalan Amis is unique. Hasam le'inyan tuma, aval hacha zimnin the dochi b'nei rishus harabim v'ayel tuva. So let's go. When rishus harabim got very, very crowded, people would go into the mavui, into the whole length of the mavui. So it's considered a meitzer that the rabbim has been machzik in. We just saw the din that a meitzer, an area, a path that the people have been machzik in belongs to the rabbin. So when it says over here the you can't put up doors, it means period, not within the 4 Amis and not beyond that. Okay, so meaning this din means you can't put up the doors at all. Why did they mean the 4 Amis? What was that talking about, guys? It's talking about the din that we learned from Saita. If you remember, Safik Tuma B'Shus Harabim Sveikoi Tamei. Safik Tuma B'Shus Harabim Sveikoi Tamei. You go after the Roiv, right? Safik Tuma B'Shus Hayachid we learned from Saita. It's a Safik. Safik Tuma B'Shus Harabim, again, we don't learn from Saita, but it's Sveikoi is Tahar. So you know what? Let's say the Safik arises within the first 4 Amis of the alleyway. In that scenario, it would have a din of Safik Tuma B'Shus Harabim and Sveikoi Tahar. That's what the din of Dalan Amis is. But vis-a-vis using it and usage of the Rabbim, they could use the whole alleyway, and therefore you can't put up doors at all. Gishmak? Gishmak. We said, V'layas esada achiyiboy tisha kavim l'zeh, v'tisha kavim l'zeh. And we said, Rabbi Yehuda then said, chatzoi tisha, 4.5. They were disagreeing. Was it in other words, when you divide the field, each person has to get an area that could go ahead and plant 9 kavim. And Rabbi Yehuda says no, it's enough for 4.5. On that, the Gemara says they're not arguing. Marki Asrei and Marki Asrei, right? In the place of the Tanakama to go ahead and get 9 kavim, you needed X amount. The fertile area of Rabbi Yehuda, you needed half of that to get the 9 kavim. In other words, that you would get that amount, but in a half that area. So they're not arguing. Bavo Mai, what's the din of Bavo? The next piece of Gemara, it's a little obscure to me. But in Bavo Mai, what's the din of Bavo? Rabbi Yosef, Beirodi Yuma. It's the Beirodi Yuma. It's the hire worker for a day's work. In other words, the amount of land that it would take for you to hire a worker for a day's work. So if the land is large enough that you could hire a worker for your part of the field, and he can hire a worker for his part of the field, that would be enough. Okay, now the Gemara, it's a little obscure to me. Let me tell you what I think it is. And this, we don't know, I don't know too much about farming, but it seems they would go ahead and after the season was over, they would plow the field. They wouldn't plant yet, they would plow the field. So when you had to plow the field the first time, you had to do it was much harder. The land was harder and you had to go over it twice. When you plowed it after the field was planted, they plowed it after it was planted to cover the field. Since it had been previously been plowed, then what? You only have to do it once. So let's say it's a day of one. So it seems that when you hired the ox, you had to hire for the day. There was no half days. Once you rent the car, it's for the whole day. You rent the ox, it's for the whole day. So if you rent it for the second half, the part when it's planted, you don't need it long enough for the other part, the two going back and forth, where it has to do it the first time. And if you do it that way, that one, you don't, it's too much for the other one. You don't need as much for the other one. So for the one day, it's not, in other words, but it seems to be like this. The first plowing the plowing after the Zriya that takes 1 day takes, let's say, 1.25 days by the other one. And the 1.25 doesn't take one over here. So how are you going to divide up the field in order that it's a working, you're telling me that a day's work, after all, it would depend, and it doesn't seem to be that it matches up. So the Gemara offers 2 possibilities for a teretz. Well, let's first see the kasha. Okay, says the Gemara. Bava Mai, I'm Rabbi Yosef Beirod Yuma. They're working for a day. My Beirod Yuma, Yuma Zara. If it's the speaking about the plowing that took place after you planted it, which wasn't so difficult, and you hired it, Trey Yuma Karvale Have. It's not enough for a full 2 days of the initial planting, which is when you're going to plant, you're going to get harder ground. The Yuma Karva, and if it's the amount of time for that, you don't need a full day for the second planting. So how do you match up that a day's work and a day's work? It's speaking what the Yuma de Karva of the day of the harder planting, and the Kar Vitani that he goes over it what he goes over it twice. So in that case, it will be for the same amount of time. In other words, whatever the 2-day planting is, if you do the 1-day planting, if you do the 1-day planting a second time, it'll be equal to the 2-day planting. Or the Ibayasema, the Yuma Desari, it's speaking about a 1-day planting, and Bahadure, which it's a hilly place, and there it's going to go ahead and take you more than the normal times to be 2 days. In other words, we want to match it up for a 2-day job, right? So you can match it with a 2-day job by the one guy doing it twice, or a 2-day job and the one guy he's doing it for the planting, but it's a hilly place and it's going to take a long time to do. That's again, it is what it is. Okay, let's go back to it. Says the Gemara by a few other places. Davla, right? Davla, you're going ahead and it's you put water in. You use a water source. Amrav Nachman, Beid the elu yuma, says Rashi. Let's go. The beid the elu yuma. Actually, boy, kedei lahashke sada, kedei pulas yom lezeh, kedei pulas yom lezeh, mishum schar poil. In other words, you divide, if you're dividing a well, if you're dividing a davla, that you have enough to go ahead and after you get the well, you'll have enough water to provide for a pile to irrigate a field for a day. So each one, you need 2 days and divide 1 day, 1 day. So usually Pardis is reminding this is a kerem. Amravu de Shmuel, Bas Sholosh Kavim. It has to produce, each one has to produce Sholosh Kavim. Tanya Nam Yehachi, Oim Lechaberoi, Minas Bekerem Ani Meichlecha, a portion of a kerem I'm selling you. That's how you know it's what it's a Pardis of a kerem. That's what Sumchus Aimer, Leiflas Migalad Kavim. So you have the raya that it's 3 kavim. Rabbi Yosef, Ein Elu Ela Divrei Nevius. These things that you said that is Gimel Kavim are only Divrei Nevius. Rashi says Divrei Nevius. Below time, there's no reason. The Ritva says, guys, this was said l'shvach, that the lashon of the Ritva, Pirish l'shvach, ha'omar al ka'omar. It was said l'shvach, as we're going to see a raya in a second, when they're going to bring a raya from the Vua. So, Ein Elo Divrei Nevius, meaning the only way he possibly could have known this is through Nevuah. The only way he possibly could have known that for a kerem, it's 3 kavim, is Nevuah. So it's not saying like, it's not, guys, you can learn it sarcastically. Ein Elo Divrei Nevius, and it's not true. No, it means he's learning it's l'shvach, the ritva, you're praising, and because the Gemara brings a raya now, and we're going to have a wonderful digression. Again, Basra seems to do this. You're learning a sugi, all of a sudden they pop him a little agadata. So they're going to pop him a little agadata about Nevuah. Okay. So any other different Nevias. Bavul, what about Bavul when you're dividing a kerem? Rabbi Bar Kisna tlas itzasa b'nei tresa gufni. 3 rows of 12 vines for each shutef. You need 3 rows of 12 vines, so 36 each shutef. Keheki the rafi gavra b'yuma, the amount it takes a person to hoe for 1 day. Amra of Dimi, Dimin Haifa, says of Dimi from Haifa, Miyom Shechar Beis HaMikdash, from the time the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Nitla Nevuah min HaNeviim, Nevuah was taken away from the Neviim, the Nitla L'Chachomim, and it was given over to the Chachomim. Now it's mashma, guys, if you look at Rashi, Nitla Nevuah, Mishum Da'amalei Le'el, Ein Elu Ela Divrei Nevius, since Rabbi Yossi mentioned that this is Divrei Nevius, Shekar Divrei Chachomim Nevuah, in other words, Rashi is also learning it's the shvach, that the nevuah that was around before the bias, when it was destroyed, this nevuah was given to the chachamim. Now, Fred the Gemara Kasha, it's mashma that the neviim were not chachamim. Guys, it's mashma the neviim were not chachamim. It was taken from the neviim and given to the chachamim. Atu chacham lav navi, who is a chacham, not a navi? Says Rashi. Ein chacham lo Elias navi. The Ka'amar Mar Nitla min Anavim v'Nitla l'Chachamim. Bechal Demikara before it was given. L'Hoysa Nevuah l'Chachamim. There was no Nevuah l'Chachamim, which is very problematic. So the Gemara answers Hachi Kamar. Afa Pisha Nitla min Anavim min Chachamim lo Nitla. Even though it was taken away from the Neviim, it never was taken away from the Chachamim. It was never taken away from the Chachamim. So just a preface, we're going to do a Taurus Chaim now, fellas. Just a Gemara in the Darim. Eina Kodesh Baruch Hu Master Shchinaso, El Misha Giba Chacham Ashev Anav. Kodesh Baruch Hu will not go ahead and let his Shechina rest on a person who's not a Gibar, a Chacham, an Asher, and an Anav. So what do you see? You see that obviously, if Kodesh Baruch Hu Master Shechina, one of the components you need is Chachma. So it's difficult to say that, well, before the bias, you don't have to be a Chacham. If you weren't a Chacham, it's not going upon you. Now, in addition, I thought the Nevi'im were Batla. If the Nevi'im were Batla, and the Nevuah was Batla, how can you say it was given to the Chachamim? So these are kashas that we're going to do with Taurus Chaim.
Maybe that's what Das Torah is. It's not Nevuah.
This is much better. You ready? I know you can see it, right? You can see it clearly? A little bigger should make it all good. It's good?
Good.
Okay. Hachi Kamar. Afa pishnit min nevuah lo nida. Pirish Rashi. Afa pishnit min neviim sheina chachamim v'tema loima came. The Amrina Eina Shchina Shaira El Al Chacham Giva, and all the Gemara that I went ahead and told you. So he's quoting the Gemara Lamed Aleph in the Darim. So you had to be a Chacham. V'oid Kasha. The Maika Amar Min HaChachamim Loy Nitla. But Bala HaNevuah Miyoyim Shechar Beis HaMikdash. Dichsev Gam Nevia Loy Matzu Chazan Me Hashem. They didn't see visions anymore. So what do you mean it was taken away from them and given over what to the Chacham? So these two kashas, the two more kashas, let's stick with these two kashas, okay? The first one, obviously you have to be a Chacham Bashras HaShechina, and second one, we said Nevu is gone, and if Nevu is gone, then what do you mean it was given to Chachamim? The Chach Nira. The trey, listen to this, you side guys. The trey Gavni Nevuah Ninu. There are two types of Nevuah. Nevuah Mamish, Kemosha, Ushar Neviim, Sheshomo HaTorah v'HaMitzvah Mipi HaGevura. They heard directly from the source. Ve'ikah Nevuah Achrita, She'ein HaMisnave Shama Dava Mipi HaGevura. The Misnave never heard anything from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ela Shmei Roiv Chachmasai, because of his tremendous chachma, Mechadesh, he was able to go ahead and literally novelly create v'yoymar dinim v'halachos u'mechaven ala emes ki'ilu nimser misinai. In other words, there were people where Sinai heard it directly mi'agvura, and the people through their chachma arrived at the same place, but they arrived there through their chachma, not through the Messiah from Hashem. K'may chachmei HaMishnah v'haTalmid v'hainu the Mishani afal pi shenitla min hanaviyim, even though the nevuah was taken away in Nevi'im, that nevuah mipi agvura min hachachomim loy nitla. Oisa hanevuah she'adam mechadesh, the nevuah that a person has the capacity to mechadesh v'omar al yidei chachmasai loy nitla. That was not taken away. That was not taken away. And now the Gemara continues. Amar Meimar v'chacham adaf minavi. Okay, let's go to Weiter. Mechadish Torah's Chaim, a fantastic pshat, and I'll add a little to it. The Nevu is the Devar Hashem. Nevu is the Devar Hashem. Torah, there's no bigger Devar Hashem than Torah. Torah is the Messiah that was given to us, and it was given at Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu did not just get the Aseres Dibris. He was taught Torah, Kala Torah Kula, Torah Shebechsav, the Torah Shebapeh was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. He had everything. As we all know, Torah is a living organism. It's alive. It's not laws that were given and are finished. They're there and they're pertinent to this day, thousands of years later. The interpretation of them through our Gedolim, the understanding of them, how to go ahead and like the Tanoim, who went ahead and they figured out from an extra letter or an extra or a trup, they were able to go ahead and ascertain right exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu meant. In other words, they were mechaven to the word of God. They were mechaven. That's considered nevuah. If nevuah is the word of God, so it can either be given directly or you arrive at it through your chachma, and that's pshat. Einachinami. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mashra his shechina al misha hu gibar chacham ashavanav. You know what that means? The nevuah to go ahead and the nevuah, of course, the first level of nevuah, but even the second level of nevuah of chachma. What's pshat then? Even though the bias was after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there was no nevuah anymore. There was no original nevuah. The original nevuah that was given over by direct mi'agvura, that's gone. But the nevuah that you could arrive through your chachma, that's still there. And that's when it was given to the chachamim. That capacity to arrive at the Devar Hashem, the Ratzon of Hashem, the Torah of Hashem through chachma, that's still in the world. And that's I think, an unbelievable Torah Chaim to explain a very, very deep concept. Baruch Hashem, I wrote down over the years, it's right down Torah Chaim. So I always look at it when I have these things. It's wonderful. Guys, you hear it's geschmack? Again, Nevuah, you always think of, Yirmiyahu's Nevuah of destruction and Yecheskel's Nevuah. You think of Nevuah as a hotline to God, which it is. But there's Nevuah L'Dairis, and there's Nevuah, we're speaking about Nevuah of Torah now. How do you know this? You know why? How do you know this Torah? Because we believe in Moshe as a Navi. And Moshe gave us the Torah. We didn't hear the Torah from Hashem. We heard the Aseres Dibris. And we didn't even hear all 10. We heard the first 2 and dropped dead. And we had to be brought back to life. So our whole Messiah is based upon belief in Moshe as the Navi. Nevuah, we spoke at the Ramban fellas. Nevuah, but by Moshe Rabbeinu foretelling that the Makis would happen, and when they would happen, proved Nevuah, that Hashem speaks to Basra Adam. And Memela, as a result, the Torah, we believe in Torah's Moshe, because we believe in his Navi Hashem. It's all connected. It's a wonderful, wonderful idea. So let's see the Gemara now. It's Kishmak as anything. Says the Gemara, even though that original level of Nevuah that you heard me Pikvura was taken away, the capacity for the Chachamim to arrive at the side of Torah, like it was given by Sinai, that was not taken away. Amar Ameima, the Chacham Adif Minavi, and a Chacham is more Adif than a Navi. A Chacham, that level, that's what he's saying. We'll see the Torah Chaim in a second. And that's what he's saying over here. A Chacham is more Adif than a Navi. The Maila of the Chacham is even bigger than the Maila of a Navi. Shnemar, the Navi Levav Chachma. Right? The Nevi'im, they have the lave of a Chacham. Now, when it says the Nevi'im have the lave of a Chacham, so me nitla b'mi, obviously if you're saying the Navi is like the Chacham, it must be that the Chacham is bigger. It must be that the Chacham is bigger. So that over here that's what the Torah Chaim said over here. Amar Ameima v'Chacham adaf min. Look where the pointer is. Amar Ameima v'Chacham adaf min Navi. Ameima asi l'shnuyei leitikshi. Don't ask. V'chima inyan divrei Chachamim l'divrei Nevuah. Why does the word of Chacham have to do with Nevuah? Mamish. V'chi divrei Chachamim Nevuah ninu. Shemedam Yisrael Adadi, Lekach Nema Da'ad Rabba. Chachamim yesh behem nevuah, yesh mima sheyesh benevuas hanavi. Shrei navi mamish tali benevuas chachamim. The navi is tali in the nevuas of the chachamim. That's what he's saying, because the chacham is bigger. Okay, and now let's finish the Gemara. And Amar Abaye Teda, I'll bring you a raya that it was not taking the nevuah, wasn't taken away from the chachamim. The Amar Gavra Rabba Milsa, a great person says something. Let's see. It says the Torah Chaim, the Kivin, the where's Abaya? Yeah. And then okay. And that's Abaya. Milsa about Misrama. But Kivin the Rav Dimi Kama the Divrei Chachamim b'dinei Nevuah he nicha the Samech Shas Milsa lahadam Rav Yosi ein lanu ela Divrei Nevias. Okay, so there's only Ein Ela Divrei Nevias, guys. Now let's go back. It's Kishmak. Came along Sumchis and Avu the Shmuel, and what they say when you divide up a kerem, each one gets gimel what kavim. How they know that? Ein Elu Divrei Nevias, that level in the nevuah that the Navi is able to ascertain what through his chachma. That's the hesber of that's here, guys. Here. Ein Ela Divrei Nevias, how they get there? Because they're chachma, through their chachma, they're Nevi'im. And that's why we're bringing this whole Gemara in to go ahead and explain that line, Ein Ela Divrei Nevias. Could I just stay up late just to hear this? Baruch, you got a kasha?
No, kasha. Just a comment. So the Nevi'im that, like you said, like Yoshio and Yirmiyahu and Yecheskel that gave Nevi'us about Klal Yisrael, what's going to happen in the future, that's that in Nevi'us. But the Torah that we learn every night, that comes through Nevi'us. There's different Nevuah. The Nevuah L'Dairis. You know what's the Gemara goes ahead and counts 48. Right, the Nevi'im isn't part of it.
Right? Those 48, there were millions in Nevi'im. Again, but I think they're focused on the Messiah of Torah through Nevuah, like I spoke at the Ramban. Of course, the Yirmiyahu warned about the Churban and Yeshio. Each one that was Nevuah for the Klal Yisrael, the Musa to Klal Yisrael. Shmuel was a Navi, gave them Musa. In other words, but we're speaking about the Nevuah of the Messiah of Torah, of that they heard directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the original Nevuah. And this is the ladder, the Chachamim, getting there through their Chachma, but arriving at the same place. And it's even bigger. It's even bigger because it's not given as a. I tell you, fellas, there's a, without the Gemara saying it, I wouldn't say it. There's a Gemara. It's in the Dorim. It could be Chavches, don't quote me. That says, it could be Laman Aleph. It says Vayiten el Moshe. It says Kekala mechupasa, like a kala, that the Torah was given to Moshe like a gift. The Yerushalmi in Hariya says that Moshe Rabbeinu kept on forgetting the Torah. Hashem would give it to him and he'd forget it. He'd give it to him and he'd forget it. He'd give it to him and he'd forget it till he gave it to him in Matana. And the Korban Eidah says, what the Pnei Moshe there says, it's to go ahead and be the chayiv the tipshim. Person should say, I don't have any brains, so I can't learn. Because Moshe Rabbeinu, at the end of the day, was given it by Matana. If Hashem is going to give it to you, if Hashem gives it to you, no matter what your IQ is, you're going to be able to learn. I've seen people who mamish made themselves in Talmidei Chachamim, and if you give them an IQ test, they would not be off the charts. I've seen people who are off the charts for sure. But I'm saying, and the level of Chachma for sure, with the brighter person usually, but Siyata D'Shmaya, we all know the story with the Netziv guys. The Netziv of Volozhin, Rashiva Volozhin, who wrote the Marami Sada, he wrote he wrote the whole Pirush on the Shiltis. In other words, unbelievable. He heard his parents, he was 13 years old, and his parents were saying, we have to send him to work. And he started crying. And he said, can you imagine, I get to Shemayim, they would have showed me what you could have done. You could have wrote this, you could have wrote this. It's Hacker is amazing. Very, very geschmack Gemara, very geschmack Gemara. Says the Gemara weiter. Amar Rabbi, Tated Amar Gavar Rabba, Milsim Misam Mishmedu Gavar Rabba. Achrina. Amar Rava, my kushi, what's your raya? The Dilma Travayu Bnei Chad Masla. And maybe Masla usually means what? On the same sign, on the same Masl, same Malach. This means the same Das. The same. We saw in the beginning above a comma that a shar is a mur the shar is not a mur the adam, because an adam has das to watch himself. It says mazel, he has mazel. Rashi explained that mazel. So mazel over here means intellect. He has das. Elama Rava Teda. What's the raya? Domer Gavar Rabba Milsim Amid Beis Umis Amra Mishmei the Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef. And Akiva ben Yosef seems to have been the ignorant shepherd. Seems to be like beyond smart. He's beyond crazy. I got to look. If you can find it again, Baruch, I'll tell you. You have the same source. It's on the right side where the lines get wide. It's 3 lines down. It says the leklamim the chad mazlahu shari Rabbi Kiva the kimla that we have a Messiah guys lehoya me oilam gavra kavasei. Lenny, the ma'olam lehoya gavra kavasei. There never was a person like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbeinu Gershom says it. There never was a person like Rabbi Akiva. It brings to mind the Gemara Menachos, or I think it's Chavtes or Chavches. The Gemara there is describing when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the Torah, and he found the Kodesh Baruch Hu putting tagin on the letters, and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "There's going to be a yid after many generations who's going to darshan multiple halachas on each one of these tagin." And Moshe said, "Show them to me." Moshe turns around and he finds himself in Rabbi Akiva's yeshiva, and he doesn't know what's flying. Till he got to a point in the program, he asked him, "How do you know that?" He said, "Halacha Moshe Misinai." So Moshe felt a lot better. And then Moshe comes back to Kodesh Baruch Hu, and I quote, "Yesh ish kizeb Yisrael v'ata noisen Torah b'yadi." Yesh ish kizeb Yisrael v'ata noisen Torah b'yadi. You have a person like this in Klal Yisrael, and you're giving the Torah through me, guys. Rabbeinu Gershom says you can underline it. There never was another person. He said, the Kimlon, his Lashon, the Lechoye me oilam gavra kavasei. Yet other people are able to mechaven to him. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay, fighter. So Amarav. So therefore, the Chayr is a raya to Nevuah, that even though you yourself are not the great Reb Akiva, you were able to be mechaven to what he said. Because why? Because the chachma you had, you tapped into the emes of Torah. Ravashi umay kushya. Maybe what Maybe you don't have a raya. Dilma laha milsa bar maslehu. Maybe in that one thing he has the same intellect. In other words, as a whole, you're not like Rabbi Akiva. Maybe in Zroyim you're like Rabbi Akiva. Maybe in Kochim you're like Rabbi Akiva. El Amar Vashi Teda. What's the raya to Nevuah? The Amar Gavra Rabba Milsa umis Amra Halach L'Moshe Misina Kavasei. And obviously, what Halach L'Moshe Misina? It must be that what you mechaven to Nevuah. It was given to Moshe at Sinai. Ain't bigger Nevuah than that. In other words, your mom's getting to the level of Nevuah Mipi Agvura that was given Mipi Agvura. Says Vidilma Kasuma Aruba. Maybe it's like luck, like a suma, it goes into a window. Maybe he's lucky. One second, but didn't you give a reason? That through his chachma, says Gemara. So maybe so. V'lav tam kamar. Didn't you go give a reason? So since you gave a reason, it can't be you're lucky, and that's a raya that you gave a reason that you mechaven ala emes, and therefore you see a raya to chachma given to nevuah given to chachamim. Guys, questions good? A very nice piece. A very nice piece altogether. That Torah's Chaim is a Pesach. It's an opening to understanding a concept. A very nice opening. Amr Rabbi Yochanan, miyam shechar beis hamikdash, nitn levuah min aviyim, v'nitn l'shaitim u'letinaikis. From the days the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the nevuah was given to what? To shaitim and tinaikis. It was given to shaitim, fools, u'letinaikis, and children. The shaitim maihi. What do you see was given to shaitim? Ki chod demar baravashi. He was walking in the shuk of Mechusa. Shamalu shaita. He heard the shaita, the kamar, reish mesifta, the malach, the masan chasya, the view michasam. Now, the Rosh Hashiva matam was Ravashi. Ravashi was nifter, and they were looking for a new Rosh Hashiva. So he heard that the shaita said the reish mesifta of masan chasya signs his name to Vyumi. And Omar said, "Ma b'Ravashi man chosim tivyumi b'Rabbanon." Ana, I saw my name tivyumi. It seems to be that was the family name, or I saw a pshat that Toiv Yomi during his days. Toiv Yomi, the things were good. Shmamina l'didi kaimala shaita. Shmamina that Ma b'Ravashi said, "This is my lucky day. I mean, this is my fortunate time." Well, let's use the word fortunate. He got up to go to Masa Machasya. And Asi, before he got a chance to get to Masa Machasya, the Rabbanon got together and decided to make Rav Afdi Rosh Hashanah. They did not appoint him officially, but Imnu, they kind of voted to go ahead and give him, but there was never, the ballots weren't counted yet. They decided he was the candidate, but the votes weren't in. Kivim the Shomei the Asar, since they heard that Ma Baravashi was coming, Shada Zuga de Rabbanon, Lagabe, they sent a pair of Chachamim to him, Lemluchebe, to ask if it's a good thing to have hired or desire to hire Rav Acham Midifti. And anyway, Achbe, he kept them by him. Ma Baravashi kept these two Chachamim by him, and not knowing that they ever got there, and because they didn't get an answer, Hada Shada Zuga de Rabbanon Achrina. They went ahead and sent another pair, and Achve, and he kept those as well. Gabe Adamala Be'asara till he got 5 pairs. Kivin the Mala Be'asara Pasachu B'Tana B'Darsh. He went ahead and he gave a praba. He gave a share. If you're saying Paisim B'Kala Pachas Me'asara, you're not Pachayas B'Kala Pachas Me'asara. You don't go darshin B'Rabim B'Kala B'Prat B'Kala Pachas Me'asara. What's the union of Kala? I didn't tell us on this. Let me see. I guess the drush of Rosh Hashiva, Pachas Me'asara. So obviously they what, and they decided they're going to appoint Ma Baravashi. Kori Be Ravacham Anavshe, Ravacham Midifti, who lost out. He said, Kol HaMarian Light. anyone that something difficult is done to him, like they did to me by not appointing Rosh Hashiva, not quickly are things going to turn around. And anyone that they did good things for, like Mabar Abashi, things will not go out and be so bad that quickly. So that's the raya that the shaita, guys, the shaita had said that Mabar Avashi was going to be the Rosh Hashiva, the Kachoyas. That's the raya the shaita. Tinoikis Maihi, what's the raya from Tinoikis? He heard the Basra of Chista, Haviyasa B'chnafei Davur. She was sitting with her father. Her father was holding her, sitting maybe on his lap. And Haviyasa Kamei Rava of Rami Barchama, two of Rav Chista's Talmidim, Rava and Rami Barchama, were sitting there. They were sitting there. And Amalah, Rav Chista said to his daughter, who was a kid, Tinoikis, my binaya boys, who do you want to marry? So I'm Amalei Travayu, I want to marry both of them. So I'm a Rava Vano Basso, I should be last. Rava Chapter Rain, Kachoya. Rami Bar Chama was Nifta, and then Rava went ahead and Rava had been married her. So Rava Chapter Rain quickly, so you see Nevuah. I'll tell you a Maisa. My Rebbe Zatzal was he was a dying on the Vilna Bezdin. They tried to kill him. And miraculously he was saved. They were beating him. He woke up in a pool of blood, and he said there was one guard, and he said, "If I don't leave now, I'm going to die." He stared at the guard and he walked out the door. The guard didn't do anything. He went and he hid, and they're looking for him. Dogs looked for him, and they couldn't find him. And I don't know if he cut off his beard or they cut off his beard. I think the Nazis cut off his beard, and he went into the ghetto. He went into the Vilna ghetto, and he was in the ghetto. And his daughter, I don't know how old she was. She could be 4 years old. Don't quote me. I don't know. She was just nifta recently. And she said, we should leave the ghetto. Said the Rosh Hashiva, L'achachur bias, Shaita and Tinoikis. Nevuah was given to Shaita and Tinoikis. Based upon this Gemara, he was saved. He left the ghetto and he went into the forest. Him, his wife, and his daughter. His son, unfortunately, the Germans had killed already, but they went into the forest. And so this Gemara saved my Rebbe. Fascinating. Fascinating. Anyway, says the Gemara Vaita. Amar Rava, Amar Rava Avdimi de Min Chaifa, Koidim sheyochel Adam v'yishteh, before a person eats or drinks, right? Yesh l'shtei levavos. He has two hearts. He's indecisive. His stomach is not. You can make good decisions when you're hungry. When you're hungry, you're not so clear. Then you have, weak touch lave is a mind. Then you have a straight mind. Shnemar ish novov yilavev. An empty man, a man who's hungry, yilavev has multiple hearts, two hearts. Uksiv. How do you know novov means empty? It says luchais. It says novov luchais. And with Targumina, the Targum says chalul luchais. The boards where they were chalul. They were what? They were empty. So you see that the word he touches the word nevuv is chalul. Amrav Huna Brei Yeshua Haragol Biyayin. Someone is accustomed to drink wine. Afilu libay otam kibesula. Even if his head is fashtupt like a besula, Yayim mefachchay. Yayim will go ahead and open up his head. Shnemar betirosh yinoivev besulais. It's speaking about lots of love, fellas, where you're going to have a lot of produce that the besulais will be singing shira. So a person who goes to the head wine and he can't think straight, take a little bit of wine and it'll open up the thought process.